So the next thing I want to show you is how to make the tie to fasten the necklace. You'll have one at this end and one at the other end. Of course, normally you'd finish making the choker before you make the ties. However, it makes sense while I've got all the videoing things out to show you how to make that as well. So I have pulled out a tail of about 4 foot, 1.25 meters from my main yarn ball. I've wound the tail into a little loop just to make it a bit easier to manage, and I've done a slip knot on the hook. So I'm going to unwind some of the main yarn. I just wanted to show you which was which. And then I'm going to place this over my finger and thumb. So the tail yarn is hanging over my thumb and the main yarn from the ball is hanging over my finger. So with the tail yarn over my thumb and the main yarn over my fingers, I'm going to tuck the hook down and under the tail yarn. And I find it really helpful to pinch the little knot at this point. I'm then going to hook around the main yarn just as I would for a normal crochet stitch and pull through both the loops that are on the hook. And that's all I have to do to make the ties. So down and under the tail yarn, catch the main yarn and pull it through both. Down and under the main yarn, pull the tail yarn through. Tail yarn, main yarn. And I'll carry on doing this until I have about 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters of cord. There we go, you can see the cord has reached 7.5 centimeters or 3 inches, and now I'll be able to attach it through the picots at the end of the choker. The picots are quite little, so what I tend to do is use the crochet hook to draw it through. So I'm going to place my crochet hook from the back here, through the picot, through the front of this picot, and then I'm going to just pop the hook through the tail. You could fasten this, you could thread the tail through a large darning needle if you wanted to and take it through, or maybe if you're quite dexterous you could actually just thread it through by hand. So now it's through. I want to join it, and that's going to be really easy. I just need to slip stitch it exactly where I had just held it. So let's get that live loop back on the hook. I pulled it out slightly so that it wouldn't unravel. Make sure again you've got the tail yarn over your thumb and the yarn from the ball on your finger, and we're just going to start by working a slip stitch into the very end of that tail of the tie. That's all joined in nicely, and now I can carry on working in exactly the same way. Hook under the tail yarn and pull the main yarn through, and now you've got the weight of the choker on this. It actually becomes a lot easier to do. It's less likely to fall off your finger, and there we can see how the tail is forming, and it's quite a nice neat join on there. What I did find when I was wearing it before is because I'm using a very shiny yarn, this loop does tend to pull through slightly, so you may want, when you're weaving in your ends, they're right here, you could actually stitch this in place so that it doesn't pull like that when you're wearing it. You could stitch the tie onto this picot here as you weave the ends through, and then stitch this part of the tie onto this picot, and that would stop it from pulling like that and curling up when you wear it if you tie it quite tightly. So we just need to continue making the tie until it's the length we want. I've suggested about 12 inches or 30 centimeters, but if you want to make a big bow or have longer tails, you could make it longer than that. If you're making it for somebody smaller, a child for example, you can make it a little bit shorter than that, or if you don't want much of a bow there, that's also fine. At the end, you can either weave the ends in back along the tail, or you can simply tie a knot and leave a few little tails hanging down, or you could actually add more yarn in at that point to make a little tassel, just some small cut ends of the yarn, and just stitch them a couple of times through the end of the tie if you wanted your jewellery to have a tassel on it.